Welcome to the House of Greatness.
Yeah.
We're here.
We are here.
Nice cold South Florida.
You know,
Cold.
it's not. I love this shit. I do.
I do feel like yesterday we were more in the shade when we were outside, and now today when we were walking out there, I'm like, okay, maybe it is a little hotter
It's
than
only
I
10 a.m.,
realized.
so give it a couple more hours.
I know. I'm like, oh
Any
god.
excuse to take my shirt off
I was gonna
or
say,
my pants off.
You rarely wear clothes
And
anyways,
or.
so like this is perfect for you.
I mean, every time I post a shirtless selfie, you're sending me an eggplant emoji. It's the connection that we have.
It is.
Now we just gotta
Who
get
doesn't
him on
like
board.
eggplant?
We gotta get him on that board.
Yeah, no wonder you guys are best friends.
They're two alike.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for
welcome,
having
guys.
us. Thanks for
Welcome.
having us. This is impressive,
No,
guys.
absolutely. Thank you, guys.
I'm proud of you. This is cool.
Appreciate
This is
it.
very cool.
Thank you, guys.
I think it's been a beautiful journey, been a beautiful process. I has gotten the pleasure to know you guys a little bit more than I have, but I have watched your growth and have been a little bit a part of that growth. So it's very exciting. It's a very special moment to have you here and host you guys at our house, our home.
See, that's what I like. Your home, your house. Like one of our core values at Fitbutters is family, and that's really like when you use the word home and house, like that. That's what should be put inside that
core,
home.
yeah.
And you guys here operate very similar to like what we do as a brand, as a family, which is core to success, in my opinion.
And I think if you look at a lot of successful companies today, or even historically, they all started in a barn, a garage. Ironically, we were at HP yesterday in Atlanta, Georgia, and they had kind of had a timeline, Morel, on the wall of kind of how that started. And it started in a barn, literally in a barn, where they created. It wasn't a printer. It was like an audio processor was the first technology that they created in a barn. And they talked about how the company's still family oriented. They remember their humble beginnings, and obviously people know Bill Gates and all the other stories out there, right? But I think that's how a lot of successful businesses start.
They started with $526.
$526 they had.
Oh my gosh.
Now they sell one of the printers every 2 seconds. The printer
They
goes
sell
out.
a printer every 2 seconds of the day.
That is insane.
What do they consider themselves now? Because when HP started, they did a lot of different things: components, and then desktop computers and printers. Like if you would look at HP and say, "What's your identity? Are they a technology company?" Is that what they would say?
I would say technology and innovation.
They're not a printer company. They would never say that.
No, and it's really their technology. It's called liquid. I forgot the terminology, LED or something, but it's a LEP. It's like a liquid ink technology.
Yeah.
They acquired Indigo from Israel a long time ago. So they've always been innovative. They've always owned the patents on the liquid ink systems and the inkjets, laser printing and stuff. So that's really the technology. I know we're diverting a little bit, but some of the stuff that we've been doing lately is some really cool label designs, but we're printing them with some new technology that AP just put out with their Indigo, and they have something called a Jet FX, which is your embellishment machine, and that's how you can add all the textures and rays and all the different things. Joseph's been doing that stuff for years, but historically you can only do that in what's called flex or offset printing. Right. There's plates involved. Now you can do it digitally. And what's great about digital is there's no plate charges. Yep. One of the things that one of my old companies that costs us a little bit of money, you've probably gone through this already, is you've got all these labels that you order, right? Because you have a minimum to get a certain price. And then, I don't know, you have a spelling error, UPC change. You just want to change your label. Every time you change that label, new plates, right? You got to pay those plate charges. So
several $1,000s too.
Thousands of dollars every time, right? So you don't have to do that digitally. And also, there's no minimum.
Yeah.
And I told this to the guys yesterday at HP. They had never heard this from a brand side before. But back in my old brand days, is we would want to release a new product. We couldn't get content of that new product created until it was produced at the manufacturer. So a lot of times our stores and distributors got to see the product way before us as a brand did.
Oh, wow.
Because the labels get printed, they get shipped directly to the manufacturer. The manufacturer then produces it. A lot of times ships it to either your 3PL or you drop ship to your distributors. So you don't even see it. Digitally, I can print one label a month before that product launches, get content, photography, build everything up before I launch it. So there's a lot of cool things that's doing. But back to the story with those guys, man, how they started, how they still remember where they are. Service was impeccable, how they treated us from a customer experience perspective. So this is our home, man, and we're blessed to have it and blessed to have you guys here. I think a lot of people know you as Fitness Informant.
Sure.
You know, they probably think that's your name.
Which I do have a real
your
name.
first
I
and
do
last
have a real
name.
name.
He's
You know,
Yeah.
Mr. Fitness Informant.
Mr. Fitness.
No, he
Inf-
actually hates when people
they
say
think
that.
like when you fill out first name, it's Fitness, last name Informant.
It's like you go to the Olympia or the Arnold and be like, you're Fitness Informant, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm Ryan. Fitness Informant is the brand. But yes, what can I help you with?
That is me.
So I mean, it's obviously you've created a brand out
Yeah.
of that, right?
Yes.
But I think not a lot of people probably know where you started
Sure.
and how you got into this thing. I don't technically remember. I'm old now, so don't judge me. But I don't technically remember where our paths crossed the first time. But I know you started at what I would say is one of the meccas of supplement stores back in the day, and Supplement Warehouse in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah,
I don't think
so,
people really know what this store was, how big it was,
Massive.
the events that
Yeah.
went down at this place back in the day, right?
Good and bad, right? So I became interested in the dietary supplement world through my alter ego in professional wrestling. Wrestle professionally, obviously I'm wearing trunks, I'm wearing tights, I'm shirtless in the ring in front of, whatever it is for people or on TV. So it's like, well, I got to work out. So I started getting interest in dietary supplements. First supplement I ever took was a supplement that Mike the Situation from Jersey Shore was in an ad. It was a
What
chewable.
was that?
It was a chewable pump.
He came out with his own line,
Chewable
didn't he?
pump tab. I think he was with.
That was
with another
later?
brand.
That was later?
With
Okay.
another brand, but I bought it and
The Situation.
So, but from there, then I became more interested. I took a job in Minneapolis, and that's when I was introduced to Jack 3D and Super Pump and like all these different pre-workouts that were changing the category.
So that was kind of your intro to the pre-workouts?
My brother
the original
took like
Jack 3D
Cell-Tech and
days?
Nitro-Tech back in the day, and it tastes like shit.
Probably like the original BPI 1MR
Yep,
with
I've taken
DMA
1MR.
back in the day.
I took everything under the sun. What some people will say were the fun days. I think the days are actually. I mean, yeah, you had a ride, but the shit was awful. I mean, in hindsight. But then I started, questioning. It's like, well, what's in the stuff? And as I went and put myself through my graduate program at the University of Minnesota to get an MBA, I wanted to work in the dietary supplement world. So I took a massive pay cut. Obviously, after you get your MBA, you have these visions of making six figures plus everything. And I was making $72,000, I think, a year, something like that at Progressive as a claims adjuster, and Supplement Warehouse was in Milwaukee at the time.
Which technically isn't bad.
No. My ex lived in Milwaukee, so I decided we were going to live in Milwaukee. It's like, well, Supplement Warehouse is there, so I reached out and they offered me $50,000. And I thought, and this is I think where some
There's
people
the
go
supplement
wrong.
industry.
There's a supplement industry, and I also in my head I'm thinking, if I want to get in, I got to eat shit for a little bit to get in. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it because I'll be doing something that I enjoy. And glorified, I was order entry, doing things in a SQL server, just a bunch of shit. But during that time, you start to realize like the wild west side of the dietary supplement world.
Right.
Like nobody knows what they're taking. There's proprietary blends, 12,
back then,
14,
everything was
16
proprietary
ingredients
blends,
long. But I also, being young and selfish at that time, like I loved what the industry was. Like you have stories, I have stories, ripping it up at after parties at the Wynn with the guys from Cellucor back. I mean, I was like, this is life? This is real?
Right.
Well, sign me up. So I'm willing to work for nickels and dimes to do so. But during a meeting at the Olympia with our crew from Europa, I pitched a YouTube series on let's break down what's in these dietary supplements. Let's tell the audience.
What year do you think this was?
2014.
Okay.
So, and at the time, Supplement Warehouse was the second largest online retailer of dietary supplements, only behind bodybuilding.com. So it's bodybuilding.com, Supplement Warehouse, and then Amazon. Like Amazon was just starting to kind of come up at this point. They weren't big yet.
Today's generation, I don't think, has any idea how
Absolutely
big
not.
bodybuilding.com of our generation was,
It
right?
was
for supplements. I mean, they're
massive.
still big, but nothing,
And what we were good at Supplement Warehouse is we did the price match guarantee. So we would, if you put the URL in for the same product at any online retailer, we would beat it by 10%. The problem is in the business practices is Bob, the guy, you buy everything. And so if an order comes through, you buy it in case quantities, right? So if the case quantity is 12 and you only sold one of those units at a 10% discount, you're sitting on 11 units in the warehouse where your cash is tied up.
Right.
So he didn't have that part figured out. And then he eventually wanted to become Amazon. We were carrying diapers and baby shampoo and
I didn't know that.
all this stuff. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm thinking like, what the fuck are you doing? Like we're a nutritional store.
Right.
And their storefronts killed, did really well. And I could see the writing was on the wall, but like, so, prior to me leaving the company, actually I was fired, which is another story. It's hilarious. But like, I pitched this idea. I don't know if Eric Hillman was in the room or not. I can't remember, but like, they loved it. They're like, hey, Ryan, you'd be great at this because my wrestling persona, decent on camera, never came to fruition. So at that point, I'm like, well, if they're not going to do it, I'm going to do this at some point. Fast forward, I interview for another job. I leave my laptop at work. They go on my laptop. They see that I interviewed for another job because iMessages were up on Apple Books. And they saw, oh, so Ryan, you're really not at a LASIK appointment. You're in Denver in a final interview for a sales rep job for Stryker Medical.
Wow.
So I get back on Monday, everything's packed up on my desk, and they said, you're dishonest, you need to go. Well, yeah, I lied to you because who tells that you're going to interview for another job, right? Best thing that ever
And a
happened.
very similar, literally almost identical story, but I can't share it on here. So,
So I got
Brandon Alejos knows what I'm talking about. We'll put it at that.
I got canned, moved to Minneapolis, and then I started on October 1st, 2016. We officially launched Fitness Informant, the digital platform, YouTube, website, social. And this, again, is before, like, I think everybody now looks at in 2023, it's like there's TikTok, there's Threads, there's all these different platforms, there's AI. None of that was there.
No.
And so, like,
Instagram was probably...
Instagram was there.
It was
Facebook
big,
was still
yeah.
big.
Facebook was still bigger back at that time?
back
Okay.
then. But now you look at like the influencers of 2023, it's all TikTok and Instagram based.
Right.
Like none of these people
don't
have
have
a
Facebook.
YouTube channel. And if they do, look like Bumstead's got a YouTube channel, that's why he's so big too.
Right.
But they don't have a website, so FI, we still have email lists, SMS lists, websites. So it's not just like, hey, I'm gonna post a video that has 24 hours to live on story and then it's gone. Or a feed. So, but we took that concept as like, okay, there's a market of people who really want to know what they're taking. And when you start diving into what was out there, even in 2016, you realize like many of these companies were just making money and printing it left and
Throwing
right.
stuff in a bottle.
And nobody asked the hard questions. Now at that time, Shane at Stacked was around.
Yeah.
Mike, before Ben was there, Price Plow was
Yep.
around. So like, I took a different approach. It's like, okay, for instance, Shane is very good at posting news.
News,
right?
right.
There's a
Updates,
feed.
new flavor, new
doesn't
product.
He doesn't
You don't
necessarily-
dive into it
every now
as
and
much,
then.
right?
He doesn't. Yeah, he really won't like super dive into the science, and he doesn't have to. So he serves a great purpose for the space. Mike, on the other hand, man, those guys are nerds in a good way. And I know you recently just had Ben on. Like they'll take the time and they'll write 16 pages of content with 20 sources. And so I said, okay, well, there's two things here. This is just the news, and this is just too in depth for me. I have ADHD. It's like, what can I figure out in 3 minutes? So I said, okay, let's take all this research, which I will read and write about, but consolidate it into an article that takes you 3 minutes to read, into a video that takes you 5 minutes to watch. And on top of that, throw in some entertaining. Throw in my wrestling persona.
Right,
be out there and be something. And it worked. And it wasn't until, you probably remember this, because Bang was coming out with stuff left and right, and James Gracely was at Bang at the time. And I posted the video.
Good dude.
Because I love
Shout out to
James.
James.
I love James. But at the time, he had called me out for something, not including him in like the top 5 energy drinks or something.
Yeah.
And I had made a video be like, there's the reason why you weren't in the top 5, James, is because the shit's just not good. And like that kind of like stemmed fire, and people were like, okay, Ryan's going to be honest here. And then we did an article about Herbalife, and that thing had millions of views on our website. The website damn near crashed. I'm surprised it didn't.
Wow.
And that's when brands like Ghost and some of these other brands started reaching out and be like, okay, you really don't give a shit. Like, and so eventually we turned it into a monetary platform, which I have every right to do, and I've been very vocal and honest about making money on the platform. But even to this day, like, I will not work with brands that do shitty stuff. I will not, if, for example, if Ike comes out with a supplement line tomorrow and you're on an annual plan with me and you send me an SFP for a new pre-workout that's trash, you bet your ass I'm going to tell people it is trash, regardless of our agreement, our friendship, because my priority at FI has been and always will be the consumer.
Right.
It's not the brands, and they need to understand that when they sign up with us. And I've only had pushback here and there, but for the most part, it's been.
Yeah, and obviously you work with the majority of reputable brands with guys we
that's
know
where the bias
personally,
comes
right?
in, right? People are like, you're biased. Well, yeah, I'm biased towards good brands.
Right.
So you're not going to find a lot of negative content on the channel because I just don't cover that.
Right.
I don't, and we were talking about this at the gym this morning, like surrounding yourself with negativity. I don't have patience for that, man. I'm a father of 3 kids. I'm a husband. Like, I need positive in my life. I get enough negative from running a business, like all the negatives that come with that, that I just don't need to surround myself with, like, telling people, like, well, this is shit and this is trash. And plus, I mean, when you do that too, then you open yourself up to liability, and that's time and resources and money and just things I don't have patience to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's super commendable what you've built. I mean, it's impressive to see what you've built with FI, Fitness Informant, and I think definitely serves a purpose. We had Ben on a couple weeks ago, and what he does I think is really cool. So the combination of what you guys are both doing is really cool.
And I always said this about Ben and Mike, and when we did a podcast, I'm like, you guys are really trying to move the industry forward by going to Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
And that's okay, because they are, and I will be on Team Price Plow all day.
Right.
I am out there trying to more or less inform the consumer more so than anything. I'm not here to like tell you I'm going to try to change the industry. The industry is always going to be the industry.
Right.
You're going to have good people. You're going to have bad people. But what you can do is you can educate the consumer, and hopefully when they vote with their dollars, that's how the industry changes.
Right.
By coming out and telling brand A, B, C, D that they're doing it wrong, that as long as they're making money and people are buying it, they're not going to change a goddamn thing. And why would they?
Right. And we talked about this too, was, buying from brands that you support the core values, the people in the brand and things like that. Hopefully you see this with the consumer today. Like, we live similar lives where we're up in the morning, we train early in the morning, like we're just going, we live the lifestyle. Hopefully the consumer recognizes that in you, where you recognize that in brands. So instead of me, maybe I'm new to fitness and I want to get into the pre-workout category, I don't know really where to start, so I go on Amazon, I read some reviews. There's a difference from reading reviews versus hearing it from you, first and foremost, on what you think about the product. I'd rather have that. Even if I don't know you. Look at you. You live the lifestyle. You live it, right? I'd rather hear it than have to read it at the end of the day. So I think it serves a huge purpose.
And that too, obviously, I don't tell people like, hey, if you take this product, you're going to look like me. I've been very transparent. I did a whole podcast on steroids, and on what I use and what I'm on in terms of TRT. But I'm just like, I'm an advocate for doing the right thing. So if somebody comes to me like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this cycle, and he's 17, what are you doing?
Right.
Why? Like, you don't need that shit. I don't even need that shit. I'm 36 at this point. Like, I need TRT, otherwise I'd feel like shit. But like, I don't need any of the other exogenous stuff. I don't need it. Do I want it sometimes? Yeah, absolutely I do.
Right.
Like, I mean, it makes you feel a certain way. And one of the big questions I get all the time is like, hey, I want to take a test booster. What should I take? It was like, why? Do you even know you need one?
Yeah, at that age, you most likely don't
even
need
any
it.
age. At this point, like, go get your blood work done. Be responsible with it. If your blood work comes back and you're on the low end of average, then yeah, maybe these couple test boosters might help you. But and some brands get upset, but like test boosters are $50, $60, $70. And if your levels are already at 800, 900,
it ain't take you to 3,000.
No, it ain't doing anything. And that's just a common thing too. Or
but I think that's also where the education on the science can really change. I mean, there's a good and a bad to social media. I feel like there's no doubt you've got a lot younger kids getting into training.
Yep.
I mean, call it 13, 14, 15-year-old, because they're on social media. They look up to an influencer who's probably 18 years old, right? And they see that body or they want to look like them. So they're buying the supplements that the influencer talks about at the end of the day, right? But then you've got also the bad side to it where they're learning about things like growth hormone and steroids, right? Because, where before it was kind of underground more so it's a little bit more public now. So you have to combat that is taking the other approach about getting blood work. Doing it the right way. Let science tell you whether you need it or not at the end of the day. And I think the more we can put that out there, the more positive it would be.
Yeah, because I don't give a shit what people put in their bodies. Put whatever you want. It's your body. It's your right. Just be smart about it.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. And then, go back to the Jack 3D days and the 1MR days. Like, we were taking drugs, I mean, great workouts, like in terms of feeling high as a kite.
Right.
But I would much rather have today's repertoire of pre-workouts and supplements than 2014, 2015. I mean, there's a reason I'm on TRT. I went to a Complete Nutrition and they sold me over-the-counter pro hormones, oral steroids. I mean, there was a lot of stuff with it. That's why we have some of these regulations when it comes to like the Pro Hormone Steroid Act because of the shit. My test levels when I went and got checked out were 90.
90?
90.
Wow.
It got suppressed that bad from taking because I wanted to be a pro wrestler. I wanted to be fucking jacked and big, And so I was trying to take every shortcut I could, but I was scared of needles. So I was like, I'll take these pills and, taking them for 6, 7, 8 months straight because that's what the guy at the store said to do.
Yeah.
Blew me up. And so, like, there was a period of my life for a couple of years where I was just miserable and depressed and just, like, no energy.
It's always going to come back to diet and training.
Yeah.
Right? And at the end of the day, that's, I mean, how many months are you post?
I'll be 6 months this weekend.
And look amazing.
Thank
right?
you.
And
Thank you.
Obviously, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I obviously see what you
and
post and promote out there, being
throughout
active.
My pregnancy,
100%, but it takes work. And
yeah, it does.
That's
what
again,
educate
people don't want to do it. They want this quick shortcut at the end of the day. But it does. Most people, 95% of people, can take everything under the sun. If they're not eating and mostly eating, but also training right, they're not going to get what they want.
No, and I think that's a unique thing too about us in Fitness Informant is we have a female perspective. That's one thing that's really missing from the space.
That is different, yeah.
Right,
it is very different.
Stack, there's not really a face to it unless Shane puts it out there. Ben and Mike are out there and they're fantastic. They had Heather for a bit before she went to Accent Sledge, but there's no female voice now. And so, like, obviously her coming back postpartum, like, get on there and talk about things. She wrote a bunch of articles about, what to do while you're pregnant, supplements to take
Right.
that are safe.
Should
That
I,
are
should I
okay.
not? Is it
Right.
hurt the baby? Yeah, there's so
And
many questions
we
that
have-
women probably have, and they don't know where
Well,
to go.
there's so many products out there too. Like when I was researching, it was like, here's a pre-workout for pregnancy, and they claimed it was safe, and it was like vitamins and like not even a pre-workout. And
Right.
then like
It's the pink tax bullshit.
yeah,
I mean,
and
just-
it's sad because like I actually have women reach out to me all the time asking those things, and obviously like right now I'm not taking pre-workouts. I
Right.
drink coffee in the morning. I take collagen. I take protein. You know, all those things. But like once I'm able to get back into the pre-workouts and everything, it'll be great because then I can actually speak to it more again.
Right.
So
But it's also a great perspective too, because you're being a mother. There's also a niche on its own, and there's
Yes.
the transitions. And you come from the background before being a mother, so showing that transition, a lot of women who go through the same exact thing. There's a
Exactly.
complete market open for that. So
Yeah, and she, I mean, before she dived into the business world with me full time, she was an RN. I mean, she worked in cardiology, she worked in float pool, she was in neuro, she worked in GI. So I mean, she has a lot of education from the human anatomy and how it works on those
Healthcare
standpoints.
system.
So like when we talk about, you know, steroids scare the shit out of her, you know, and rightfully so. She's had patients who did steroids for 20 plus years have heart attacks at the age
Right.
of whatever it is.
heart failure, and it's just I think we're so focused on like the here and now that a lot of people that are doing these things don't think about,
think about the long
okay,
term.
when you're 50 years old sounds old, but like when you get there it's like I'm still young, you know. And so like these people come in with all of these things they did when they were in their 20s, and now they're paying for it at the age
Right.
of 50, and that's not like I want us to live to 70s, 80s, you know. So 50 is way too young to be
Yeah.
dealing with those things.
But that goes back to blood work and doing things responsibly. I think people can take steroids their whole life as long as you cycle it
100%.
correctly.
I mean,
and you
like,
have,
it's more readily available now to get
Yeah.
blood work. It's a lot easier to do that. It doesn't cost us a ton of money anymore.
Well, if you're willing to spend money on the other things, at least do that. I'm
At
not
least,
saying you
yeah.
should. I'm still not a huge fan of steroids, but if you're going to do it, at least try to do it responsibly.
I mean, I'm a big car guy, so I always try to find car analogies. But, you know, whether you've got a good car, bad car, shitty car, luxury car, at the end of the day, you know, it's like you're doing all these upgrades, but you don't know, you know, should I put oil in the car today? Do I
Yeah.
have enough oil? What about
Yeah.
power steering fluid? What I don't know what my levels are, so F it. I'm just going to keep adding more supercharge, you know, adding more horsepower.
Yeah.
No, people don't do that.
No.
So, you know, go get your blood work, see where you're at. Let the blood work tell you what your body needs.
if you're not naturally doing everything you can before you take that step, like that's where I get angry. Like if you're not putting in the time to train, all those things. Like it's one thing once you've hit that plateau.
Hit that plateau, you've
and
done everything.
and like
Like,
you've
you've
done all the
maximized
extra
what
work.
you can do.
I get it. Like I still don't push for it, but like I get it. But if you're at that beginning stage where you just started working out, you're still in your first couple years, there's so much growth you can make before adding those things. And that's where it's like, okay, do the first steps, and then if you feel like you
do
need
the
to add
fucking
more,
work.
Yeah.
Do the work before
And
you start
taking all those
The
things is not
conversation
gonna
I
do
love
anything
getting
extra.
into, this happened in Atlanta this weekend. One of our partners' son, I would say is he 18? I was going to say about 16, 17. So 18, young kid, right? Obviously looks at us, thinks we're big. You know, I don't think we're big, but, you know, and he, you know, how do I get bigger? What should I take? What
Yeah.
supplements do I take?
Common
And I
question.
said, first question I ask anybody that comes to, how many calories a day you eating? I'm like, well, I
Number
don't know.
one.
Well, that's the first problem, right? So the first thing is you need to figure out how many calories a day. And I guarantee you, you're probably eating 1,500, 2,000 calories, maybe, right? And, you know, when you tell them, you know, you want to gain weight, you want to build and put some size on, you probably need 4,000 or 5,000 calories. And they look at
Yep.
you like, what? I'm like, yeah, you got to eat.
Clean,
You know?
clean.
Definitely clean,
That's
you know?
like, that's my biggest pet peeve is when people are like, "Oh, I'll eat 4,000 calories," but it's like all
Junk.
gross
Right,
food, and
right.
it's like I get that
It's obviously a
hard.
lot harder to get 4,000 or 5,000 calories from clean. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know, but that's where like
and
Fitbutters
you know, there's
come
some
in.
people again. Some people max their weight. They'll max themselves out at 4,000, and then they have to have that one cheat meal to get them
I
to
get it.
5,500,
Oh, yeah,
right?
I
Or a
get
weight
that.
gain or something like that,
For
right?
sure.
But it's
I've
the
never
food
been there
intake.
near
You know,
that
it's
many
the food
calories, so I
intake,
can't talk.
which I think makes it different.
Or and then the consistency of like committing to a training program too, right? Like, hey, I'm kind of I go once, twice a week. Sometimes I make it 3. Like, okay, there's that. You know, have a consistent
I haven't
training.
personally come across a lot of people that only go to the gym once or twice a week, but you know,
Right, but sometimes people are like, you know, or the question is like, I'm starting to get into the gym. You know, what pre-workout should I take? None. Get to the gym consistently first, because
Right.
if you buy a pre-workout, that doesn't. I mean,
If buying a pre-workout is going to be your motivation to use it and get to the gym, that's another story. You know
sure,
what I
but
mean?
agree.
Your
I had this
motivation
conversation
shouldn't
with
come
somebody
from
else. It's like,
pre-workout.
what is a pre-workout? Like, what makes a good pre-workout? Technically, anything you take before you go to the gym
Is a pre-workout.
and it helps you go to the gym, get the gym, and maybe get a better workout, technically it's working. It's good, right?
I drink right now iced
so
coffee, and I consider that
it's
my
a pre-workout, right?
It's caffeine.
It doesn't technically have much citrulline or
it doesn't have any extra
beta-alanine
stuff,
or
right?
this, right? But
Yeah.
if that helps you get a better workout or get to the gym, then technically it's doing its job
Yes.
at the end of the day,
That's
right?
why I don't. I used to shit on C4, and then I kind of
Number one
thought
sold
about
That
it.
was my
pre-workout
first
ever, I
pre-workout.
think.
I thought about it a
Ever.
little bit more. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, if buying the twin pack from Costco is a big reason that helps you get up and get going to the gym to better your life, then who am I to say that's a piece of shit?
100%.
Now, are there better formulated pre-workouts?
100%, right.
100%.
But if you're not
But for that
already
customer-
going to the gym and know the difference, you don't need those extra things.
Well, that's the thing
you have to
too.
prove yourself, right?
Not to go off on a tangent, but I think we're at the point now where so many brands will be like, well, let's do 6, 8, 10 grams of citrulline. Let's window dress this up. There is a fucking bell curve here, people. Like at some point, too much of a good thing is not a good thing.
Right.
Yes.
It's like it's
Gastric, it
it's
could be all
costing
kinds
the
of-
brands more money to make. It's
And
costing
that.
you more to buy.
buy, yeah.
And so like now I've been talking to Ben about this. It's like trying to experiment with some more simple pre-workouts. And do I
4 or
notice a
5
difference?
ingredients, simple, basic,
That
solid
versus
dose.
12, and
Right.
do I notice an incremental difference in my workout compared to the servings or price value of that? And honestly, I don't think the normal person can really distinguish between the two.
We probably couldn't distinguish between. There's so many other factors that go
Sodium,
into
food, water,
sleep.
Yep.
That all go into like how the pump is the next day, the energy levels, and
Yes.
it's usually never the supplements.
Yeah,
it's
and I
all these
think
other factors that play into it. So
we might have overcomplicated things a little bit too, with the science that we provide.
it's
at
the marketing.
times.
I mean, marketing.
Right.
Supplement companies are marketing machines, right? That's what they do at the end of the day.
And so, like, obviously, too, me having a business background, I try to look at it from that perspective, too. Not to say it's okay to rip the consumer off. I never think that's okay. But, like, C4, for example, it's $19.99. I mean, that's not a bad. That's fine. It's $20.
Right.
I mean, it is
You
what it
aren't
is. Is
gonna
that
beat
$20?
that.
Is that a $20 pre-workout? Yeah.
You're paying for what
It
you
is.
get,
100%,
right?
right.
So, like, now if C4, that C4 was $60,
different story.
different story. And so, and the conversation about, and you can speak to this better than anybody, changing a formula for Walmart, right? Like, there are people out there who are like, well, why'd you water down your formula? Why'd you change the formula? Redcon went in at the full formula. Congrats. That's awesome. Rise changed theirs to an Element series. I don't think it's that bad of a pre-workout. I think they had to meet a price point. Now, if you take, the term watered down is interesting to me because, like, what does that mean? You just you changed the original formula for lesser to meet a $39.99 price point. Like,
Doesn't take it's not
The Walmart
watered down
buyer
technically.
is not buying-
There's a retail threshold
reason
that the
they're at Walmart
consumer is
buying
looking for,
pre-workout.
But it's a great topic because at ProSups we went through this exercise,
Yeah.
right? When we got the green light to get in there, it was like, okay, what formula do we go in? And this was probably 2016, 17-ish back then. So it was still at a time where you would still get a lot of heat from your mom and pop stores, your distributors if you went in there. So we're like, how do we go in there? And then we kind of did an analysis, and we knew we wanted to be $19.99 or less. That was the target spot, which actually was still on the higher end of pre-workouts at that point.
Right.
But being a formula guy, I didn't want to water down, tweak, change, or do anything to the formula. So what I basically did is I took our Mr. Hyde that lived at that point in time, and I basically cut everything in half and then cut the servings down.
Yep.
So so if you took 2 scoops, we called it Signature Series for Walmart. If you took 2 scoops of Signature Series at the Walmart version, it equaled 1 scoop of the regular version everywhere else. So you're getting the same formula, right? At a lower price point at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we went in there. Redcon, I believe, was the first brand to go in there with
$39.99.
same everything,
thing.
Yeah.
same everything, same retail price, and from what I've heard, it's done pretty well.
Yeah, and I'd say
it was kind of as a consumer going to spend that at Walmart, and I think positively it has done okay for them.
And I think that was the first time that the industry, Redcon, you can say what you want about them, right? Good, bad, and different. Like, that was a big step for the space.
Huge.
To go into the largest retailer on the planet.
Basically legitimize that Walmart is a GNC and vitamin shop specialty retailer. It's a designated retailer.
They're not dumb. You know, we're going into Walmart in October, and the perception of Walmart needs to change. Like, the Walmart shopping experience in 2023 is not the same as 2015. You've been to some of these retail stores in the future in Bentonville. Like, you've seen them, what they're doing. They're like a mini IKEA. They're setting up store sets. They are curating a product set catered towards the $100,000 plus household, like Fitbutters, like Magic Spoon, high protein cereal. It's $10 a box.
Yeah.
because I shop at Walmart. To get
Most people do, right?
You know, so like I think yes, when Walmart.
And what everybody realizes is most people are shopping at Walmart, but then they want their supplements. They got to go next door down the street to a GNC and vitamin shop because Walmart didn't carry the type of supplements that us as consumers wanted, and we'd rather pick them up there. One less place to go.
Well, go into any grocery store or retailer in the country today. You're going to see what they call the HBC set, right? The health, beauty, and cosmetics set is expanding.
Yep.
Every quarter. Giant Eagle, Hy-Vee, even the Publix and the Wegmans, like they know that there is money to be made there, and they don't want that customer having to go to the vitamin shop. So you look at vitamin shop and
the
GNC
meetings
numbers.
I did all those years trying to get a lot of our brands into these grocery sets, and one of my big pitches to the buyers were like, you're buying your chicken at Publix, or your rice, or you're buying your food there. You're already going to that supermarket. The problem is you would never buy your supplements there because they didn't carry the type of stuff that we took, that your more traditional sports specialty retailer would have. And next thing you know, you start putting in some of those brands, starts to sell.
Well, that's why GNC and Vitamin Shop are scared shitless.
Of course.
I mean, they're trying to figure out how to keep the customers.
100%.
And it starts with the sales associates understanding and knowing what the fuck they're selling.
Right.
You know, like
that's the one thing that you aren't going to find at the grocery store.
No.
Still. So
No
like,
one's coming down the
to
aisle
have
that
someone
can
that
help
be like, here's what you need, here's the
education,
plan,
right.
like that's going to be how they stay in business.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Steve Calabrese, and you and I both know Steve. And like, and
See Steve on Friday.
Here's why I like Steve. When we went into
Drives me crazy most of the time.
Yes,
love you, Steve.
But when we launched in the vitamin shop, the first person I texted was Steve. And when I said, "Hey, buddy, I just want to let you know we're doing this," and I've said this story a couple times, and his response was what every specialty retailer in the country should think. He said, "That's great for your brand, and it's also going to be great for me, because Vitamin Shop is carrying 5 flavors. I carry 15. So if they want more flavors, they come in here and they have a conversation with one of my sales associates, my family members. They're never buying their supplements somewhere else again.
Right.
Because we have a model of service first.
Right.
Yes.
And so if we win them over and we carry everything and plus all this other stuff, there's no reason for them to go back. They'll come here to get Fitbutters, and they'll come here to buy their pre-workouts because we treat customers like family.
Yeah.
And so, but then you get other retailers, especially with Walmart. We haven't heard it yet, but I was waiting to hear it. Like, well, now you're too big. I have a family. I'm charging a pretty solid price point to Walmart.
Right.
If you run a business and you tell me like Walmart wouldn't be of interest to
But
you,
look at the end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Steve Calabrese has been running stores for 20 years.
successfully.
Still successful today, right? Not totally different approach than, and again, we don't, maybe these are new owners, 1 to 2 year guys, right? They just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean,
And hey, respect it, cool, get it, but you can't burn yourself out trying to convince them or.
Well, it's still also like Walmart, yes, they're carrying us, but they only have a few flavors, right? So if you're carrying more of our line, like it's still going to be, I recognize that because I saw it at Walmart. Now
I'm sure there's
you
probably
guys have more
flavors that might only live in specialty. Maybe you come out, maybe there's limited edition and stuff. By the way, we didn't even touch about what this butter thing is that we're talking about right now. So what is this Fit Butter? Like, is it for tanning? Yes.
Preferably rub it everywhere.
Okay.
it can be a lube if you want it to be. I don't
mean,
care.
you do wrestle with a bunch of guys in bikinis.
I do.
We've actually talked about doing that forever, is having like girls wrestle in nut butter.
In nut butter. I mean,
at an event.
I always say, when we talk about the
You
origins,
have the nut bash.
Yeah,
that happens every year.
I know. And last year I got the flu right before the night of.
Influenza.
I had to cancel my flight. But like the origins of Fitbutters is going to be a story that is just. I always say we got extremely, extremely lucky.
One after another.
blessed luck. We wouldn't be here without my previous life at General Mills. I think that definitely helped a lot. But honestly, like when COVID happened, I had brand owners call me and be like, "Hey, we can't pay you this month because our cash flow was tied up."
Right.
And so that's my income, And Danny and I had just started seeing each other, and basically she moved in right away because of COVID. And you couldn't go anywhere.
My sister was scared of me coming home because I worked in the hospital.
So like I was like, well, fuck, man, like we gotta keep providing value to these brands. If the gyms are closed and they're not going to buy pre-workouts and test boosters or whatever it is, like what can we do? So we started making healthy recipes, and I've always been obsessed. Like when I scroll through Facebook, Instagram, they always have this overhead camera on how to make these recipes at home, and the recipes are always like cheesy and fatty, and my God, they look great.
It looked amazing.
But I was like, we can do that, but in a healthy format. So we bought the overhead camera, like whole setup, and started making a bunch of stuff. We worked with like Grenade. We made like a raspberry chocolate cheesecake using the Grenade bar, and then we started just incorporating protein powders and whatever it is from our brands that we worked with into recipes, so at least people could try to like not gain the COVID-25 or whatever it ended up being. And we had had jars of like Nuts and More and American Dream and Hank's in the pantry, and more so for her because she was doing the bougie nut butter. I'd still do like Skippy Natural. I'm a dude, I didn't care as much. We Pinterest one night, literally Pinterest a recipe on how to make nut butters at home. So we went over to our local Cub and
Let's do this.
We bought pre-weighed out cashews and pre-weighed out almonds. We didn't even weigh them ourselves. We put them on a baking sheet. We baked them, put them in the food processor, put a scoop of Diner Vanilla from Primeval Labs in it, a little bit of unsweetened coconut, and that became our first SKU ever. It was vanilla.
It was so good,
Vanilla
and I'm
coconut
so
cashew.
sad we don't have it anymore.
Vanilla coconut cashew almond, I believe it was. Or
Cashew
something like
almond,
that.
yeah.
And then when I tried it, I was like, holy shit, like this is
good.
really good.
Obviously, before you brought to market, you dug your stability and all your testing.
100%. Yeah. So like,
I don't think a lot of people know all that stuff that goes on behind the scenes there.
So when I thought that this was a good idea because it was better than everything in the cabinet, like obviously you have to go through a pricing exercise and figure out like where you need to price this,
Right.
and
Retail,
I think that's where people
direct,
mess up, right? Wholesale, distribution,
Wholesale.
everything, and what the competitive set was sitting at. So like it was always $15, but I told Danny from the get go like that night, I'm like, I think we have a business here. We're going to run with this. So it came down to I designed the labels myself, and you'll appreciate this. I didn't know how to use Illustrator, not a damn lick. I knew Photoshop. Not Illustrator. I stayed up all night, taught myself Illustrator.
Joseph's scared because I'm getting really good on Illustrator.
Are you? Yeah.
He's getting scared.
So we designed it. We had them printed, and I realized, I thought, wow, these things are too plain. It's missing something. So, to our conversation earlier, I threw them all away. I had them printed, paid for them. Then we had a little nut texture in the background, and then it became kind of what it is, the first iteration of this. But just ran. I made recipes up within 5 days, and I was R&Ding them while she was at the hospital, doing nursing stuff. And at this time, I still had my contacts at General Mills. So I could reach out and be like, hey, in terms of label guidelines and regulations when it comes to a food product, font size,
that was good, yeah.
right? Like natural, artificial
Regulatory,
flavors,
yeah.
like what?
Label guidelines, yeah.
Parenthetical labeling, which people don't understand. Like a chocolate chip is not a goddamn chocolate chip. It is milk,
No,
it is cocoa,
right,
it
all
is
the
sugar,
ingredients, yeah.
right? And we'll see our competitors just put chocolate chips, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, you do you. But I told Danny, I go, even though we might make $1, we're going to operate like a $1 billion brand. We're going to do everything the right way from the get-go, which means if we fuck up, we own it, we make it right, we provide the best customer service, we make sure that this stuff is perfectly on par. And thankfully with the FI following, we were able to launch through that platform, get a bunch of orders. I ordered 100 jars, plastic jars to start. We ended up doing 600 jars, 400 plus jars.
The first run was 416.
416.
And
It
then
was like
90
maybe
How
the
long did
previous
it
day.
take to make
2 full days.
416 jars?
2 full days,
Two
about
full
30,
days
about
in the
30
kitchen.
hours, and it was hell. And we were using Ninja blenders
I threw Ninja Blender
because
across
you
the
can
room.
you can legally make up to X amount of dollars per sales out of your home if you want to. We did. We went to a commercial kitchen,
Right.
And we did Ninja blenders. We had 10 blenders to start the day. By the end of the day, we had 3 working blenders. 7 that
Burn
burnt
them out?
Burn
Well,
them out.
the nut butter would get stuck in the cap part where the center. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they burn them out. I mean,
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
burnt out.
So
it
we're
was
driving
bad.
home at 2 in the morning, and I'm just like, this dream's not over. We got to figure this out. And we had a buddy of ours who's like, what about an immersion blender, which is like a handheld.
He worked in the restaurant business, and so
Yeah,
he was
so,
like,
like,
we
we're
use these things.
So I went the next day to Restaurant Depot or whatever it was, and I bought an immersion blender for $600, and we tested it in my kitchen. I was like, okay, I think this is gonna work. So we did that for the first couple months, and then specialty, Steve Calabrese, Natural Body. They're like, well, we'll bring it in, and the product wasn't bad. It's not nearly as good as it was today. And just one thing led to another. The flavors got good reviews. The textures people liked.
I think one of the coolest things that but that was awesome for that product was I want to say collaborations,
yeah.
but how you incorporated these brands' protein
Into it.
Yeah.
into the right.
And so that was another value add. So the first call I'd made was to Mark Glazer over at NutriBio through Eric Schwartz, who was there at the time, and said, hey, here's my idea. My idea is this. I'm going to buy your protein at your cost. So whatever it costs you to make it, I will buy that, plus I will pay for freight to me. In exchange, I'll put a sticker on top of every label. Eventually, we added the QR code too, in which people can go to your website and purchase that.
Right.
So, and I'm also going to be in this. I'm a completely different set. We're not in the protein set. We're in the functional nut butters. We're in the food business. I think we're going to introduce your brand to a lot of new consumers, especially
consumers, yeah.
females, because this industry, the sports nutrition industry, does a terrible job of speaking to the female demographic. So that was really cool for us. So we're buying. I'm getting tubs. At first, it was like 20 pounds here and 60 pounds here, and then. The writing I knew from the get-go. I'm like, this isn't sustainable long-term. We're going to grow this thing, and when we do, I can't, for 2 reasons. One, margins, right? You can get it cheaper going directly to the manufacturer.
And you don't have direct control.
Well, that was a big thing, still during COVID. Anthony at Prime will love him to death, but he's like, Ryan, we can't afford to keep making this protein. It doesn't make sense for us.
That's the other thing. The brand decides to get out of that.
So I lost the SKU. And I don't ever fault him for that. I would have done the same thing. And him and I are boys. I love him. And then I started having brands say, well, now we're going to charge you a royalty. It's like, well, I don't think you have enough brand equity to bump the needle here. So like, it was just like, all right, well, supply chain, pricing, ego in the space. I'm like, it's time for us to move. So we eventually moved out of that into our own protein, which, I mean, allows us to control the supply chain, lower cost, but also allows us to flavor it the way we want to. We're not
we get tons of iterations and we get to choose the best one.
We're not handcuffed to this version of chocolate, and that's the best we can do. We can make it the best we can. But again, luck, like the place we were buying our nuts from in Minneapolis happened because I didn't have enough nuts for a production run on Monday. So I'm Facebook messaging this local nut page in Minneapolis. The girl who answers the Facebook message was laid off because of COVID. So she just by chance thought, hey, this message has some merit. She didn't have to respond. Wow. She forwarded my message over to Michael Burt, who's one of our partners now, who owns this facility. We went in Monday morning, got nuts. He wanted to learn more about the business. I told him that we were going to find a new commercial kitchen in Minneapolis because we were driving 2 hours there, 2 hours back. I was missing time with Aurora, my 5-year-old girl. I'm like, I'm being a shit father here, trying to make this thing come true. So we almost signed a lease on a commercial kitchen in Minneapolis. The only reason we didn't is because the attorneys on the other side took too much time to get done. Michael, one day when I went to go pick up nuts, he's like, walk with me. He's got a GMP facility in Northeast Minneapolis, edited from the FDA every year. Has a vacant room, manufacturing room with nothing in it. He's got mixers, and I had all the other equipment. He's like, what if you rented this from us? And I said, are you sure? So for the first 6 months, we paid $2,000 a month rent. That was it, to be in the space.
And we shipped out of there.
The product became exponentially better through the mixing process that we were using, and we eventually bought an automated filler. And then finally, that January of that next year, I went to Michael. I said, hey, instead of us paying markup on nuts, instead of paying for overhead for the building, what if you came in, and what if your team takes? Cause we're still manufacturing, man.
We were still making.
I'm still in there 3 days
ourselves.
a week,
and we were finding random friends and people that could help us. And it was crazy.
Literally, people hey, come in, we'll pay you whatever.
Some of our
it is.
ambassadors.
That's cool, though. And we're hand labeling jars, and so we started buying some more equipment to make life easier. But still, I got Fitness Informant to run too. That's still paying the bills.
And I was still nursing, and so I was
kids,
my days off of nursing, I was making Fitbutters, and so I
while
was
pregnant,
just
we were busting ass.
It was
12, 14-hour days still there too. And then, Michael's like, yeah, I'll own the production arm. And we kind of figured out an equity play that made sense for everybody involved. So his staff is basically our staff. It's all of our own equipment. So we just installed just shy of $500,000 manufacturing line a couple weeks ago. So Fitbutters owns all the equipment, including the mixers now, but we utilize his great people who are now our family as well to manufacture it so her and I can focus on growing the business. We had to build this line because Walmart and Meijer and Publix.
How long? So 2016? No, 2020.
2020 was Fitbutters.
3 years.
Just over 3 years.
Where you are today? I know we just went and checked out a local Publix, which is huge, by the way. But
amazing.
Did you say Walmart? Did I hear Walmart?
Walmart will be in October. We're the fastest growing nut butter in the country.
Largest retailer in the world.
Walmart will be large. Yes, that's going to be huge.
Huge.
And then,
been in Vitamin Shop.
Been in Vitamin Shop for 2 years. Hy-Vee for several years. Giant Eagle, Wegmans since last October. We got Target will be coming up next year. More than likely, Kroger's going to come to fruition. H-E-B, Harris Teeter. So it's been, and this has all been done not through the use of a brokerage network outside of Colton, our friend at Walmart, because Walmart's a different beast. It's just been me grinding LinkedIn and finding the buyer and sending product and explaining the story and telling the story.
I think every time someone asks, "Oh, you have a broker?" Ryan's like, "No, it's all me." They're like, what? Jaw drops.
Yeah, it's just it's typical of that industry. Everybody kind of uses the broker, right?
I don't like to use the word lazy.
I was going to say, most of them are just lazy.
It's not hard. You just got to figure out what angle to take to get the right person.
If you build a brand and there's demand, and the retailer's going to sell it and make money,
And I think too, a big thing is for us, it's we open up the doors to our home. For people who buy Fitbutters, they know Danielle. They feel like she's their friend, and me, and we don't have to do that, but I feel like we're in such a social media, reality TV driven world that they like to feel like they're part of something. I can't tell you who the CEO of Under Armour is. The only reason I buy Under Armour clothing is because The Rock. And the reason why I do that is because he opens up his life on Instagram. And he's very cool, and I've never heard a bad thing about him, and that's coming from the world of pro wrestling. So it's like,
I want to go fishing.
I want to support
his
him.
little lake in the backyard.
Right, in Georgia.
Yeah, it's not fair though.
No, it's just filled with big bass.
12-pound bass.
But that, I think, people You know, people love to see that. Like when they buy, they're supporting Ryan and Danielle and our family.
It's like
and
the
our
reality
vision and our dream.
TV of now, right? Like reality TV obviously is still a thing, but like being on social media and stuff, like people love to feel like they're a part of like
we talk about this in on every
That's our
podcast.
friends.
The brands that are thriving
Yeah.
today is because people want to support things they believe in,
Right.
or people they believe in the
Yes.
brands. And the brands that are succeeding today or winning are usually have some type of influencer,
Yeah.
you know, at top or owning the business, or organizational people
Mm-hmm.
have some type of following.
Yes.
That's what brings the human element into
100%.
a brand.
Right.
Like
people
most-
seek that connection.
Yeah, and the product's great, but you know what? I love YouTube.
Well,
Yeah.
I've always
You know?
said too, I don't want to be a transactional brand. We're a relationship-driven brand. You know, like there is a transaction involved, but the minute you sample, buy, follow, you're part of our family. And if you have questions on social and you reach out,
It's us.
It's us.
Right.
If you email, it's us. If you call, it's us. Now, at some point, depending on how large we get, like we're gonna have to have help on those things. But like even like the CrossFit Games last week, I've been to so many events where like the ownership and leadership team just don't go. They send their event staff, and I'm just like, I don't give a fuck if we're a $1 billion company. I want to be there. I want to be there with the people supporting the brand because I always want to be connected with that consumer. I want to let them know how much I appreciate them because none of this happens without them.
Without them, right.
And I said that to Danny at the CrossFit Games. I go, sometimes I feel like it's a little cheesy when I say that, but it's absolutely true.
Not at all.
You know,
I think that's the most important element, and I think it all has to do because of the passion that it came from how you grew it. You grew it from the ground up, and that's one of the things is if you stay true to that. And a lot of other thing that I wanted to bring back, you kept saying that we got lucky, but just like you said, you were grinding. And they say, there's a quote that they say, that the harder you work, the luckier you
The
get.
more luck
I
you
love
create,
that.
the more luck you create.
So it's
yeah.
like I don't believe in that it was luck. I believe it was all the hard work that you guys have been putting in, the times, the hours that you have done it while you were pregnant, while you were knocking on doors, trying to get this product in, and it's an incredible accomplishment that it hasn't been open that long. You know?
No, and I think the one thing I need to get better at, and like you can probably relate to this, when you guys went into Walmart, that was a big moment for you. You know, for us going into Publix and Walmart, that's a big moment for us. But I haven't even had an opportunity, even today with you. Like, I didn't even take 2 seconds to sit back and like, it's a big fucking deal. Like, I am wired, like you guys are too. It's like,
To keep going.
what's next?
Right.
Yes.
Right? Okay, that's cool, but what are we gonna do now?
And there's a big importance in that. I was watching The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I was actually watching the movie version of it from the book. And he was talking about that. We are in this era where we so caught up of being able to chase, we're always chasing the
Chasing the
rabbit.
carrot.
Chasing the
rabbit,
carrot,
yeah.
for sure.
The rabbit.
The rabbit.
Or the rabbit, you
Yeah,
know.
whatever you want.
If you're in Africa, you're chasing the rabbit, you know.
I always mess up the
I mean, they look kind of similar, right? Carrot and a rabbit.
We're always chasing that, and they made a cool analogy of it chasing it, and the body just goes away until eventually you just fall and die, and you never really get to appreciate and be in the present moment of
Right.
what's going on now. So I think take the time and take the importance of congratulate yourself in every milestone that you reach. I think it's important, all of that, because you're also family, you're also parents.
I would just say like that there was like a reel the other day on being a parent, and there was always like, once they're doing this, it will be easier. Once they're doing this, it will be better. And versus like appreciating the moment that you're in right here, right? And that's the same as parents, right? Like in the business, as like, I don't want to keep thinking like, oh, once she's not 2 anymore, then we'll be happier.
Right.
Once she stops throwing these tantrums, we'll be happier. Or like, once I'm not breastfeeding anymore, I'll be happier. It's like, instead of waiting for a moment to be happy or joyful, like be joyful in the moment you're in right here.
And it
Never live
depends
it
on,
again.
I think
And
it
it's
also
hard.
depends on like how you're wired. Me and you are wired very similar, where we just want to win, dominate, and keep going and keep going. And this isn't a regret of mine, but I've told a lot of people this over the years. One of the things I wish we did more in the heyday of ProSups was live in the moment. You know, we were so focused on just growing the revenue, growing the business, trying to transact, find a buyer and sell.
Yeah.
Where like we did some crazy things. Like we built a $50 million brand in 4 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was one year where I was trying to like, if we hit this number, we're flying everybody in the company to Mexico. They get to bring one other person, because I can't say wife or side chick because some of our guys had 3, right? So, you know, they get to bring one other person. I'm not calling anybody out on this podcast, but you know who I'm talking about. But bring one other, right? And we go to Mexico for a weekend and just enjoy it, right? And we never did it, right? yesterday, we had a crazy experience, flying up to Georgia and HP. I texted Joseph last night. I was like, man, congrats. Like, that's huge.
Yeah, man, for sure.
And you gotta celebrate those victories.
For sure.
At some capacity. Everybody does it in a different way. I've always loved traveling, so even if it's a quick Friday, decide, I know you guys are going to go hit the beach for a couple hours today. That could be your celebration, right? Just spend some time together, shut the phone off, have a margarita or 7, and kind of go from there. I don't know if you're going to make another baby, but
no, that's not. I mean,
all right,
not possible.
Thank the Lord.
And luck. Yeah, so hard to work, the luckier you get. But we've also had some good people along the way. Like reaching out to you, reaching out to people about pricing early on. My General Mills contacts. Your former contact TJ helped get me connected with Colton.
Those people
Connections
did
are
ride they did ride by you because of how you were with them.
right.
I mean,
So that's why I see that, connections are everything, and it's all about who you know.
Right.
But it depends on who the person that you are, right? When the camera's not on, when people aren't watching, the ethics that you work with, that's how you're able to build these relationships, or you're able to encounter people that are in the same frequency that are able to help you
or want to help, right? Like,
they're
whenever
not
Ryan
expecting
reaches
nothing out of
anyone,
it, right? It's just out of the pureness of their heart, right?
Yeah.
I said this on the lip, I love helping people,
right.
Unfortunately, sometimes that's, I want to say, come to burn me, but I just love to help people.
Yeah.
I want to see people win at the end of the day. And technically, it's why we started House of Greatness is, at some point you got to monetize, certain things in life, right?
Right.
And it's continuing to do what I love, help people create their own brand. Help limit them, make the mistakes that I've made. You've made mistakes through this journey, right? If we could save you some money and limit those mistakes, expedite the process from conception to, supply chain to get it on shelf or whatever it is.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And that's the hard part when people are, like, obviously I would not be here without Ryan. Like, Ryan has all the all the knowledge. But, like, me being from the nursing world and coming into this space, it's like, oh, I didn't even know that. And it's like one thing after another. And so if you're coming from a space where, like, you never did it before, like, you need those contacts. You need that.
There's value in that.
Yes, so much value.
But also you want to make sure you're aligning yourself with the people that genuinely want you to do well.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because there's a little bit of the bad side of that.
Alternative
where
motives.
where people just take your money.
Oh, yes.
Right? And things of that nature. So
yeah, for us too. I mean, we had to do a UPC update. So I said, okay, if we're gonna do anything with the label again, let's do this right now. And so we got a date coder. We could actually, we print the date and stuff on the bottom of the jar now instead of actually using a sticker on the side. So I utilized the new space that we created to put our core values on the label.
Nice.
I thought it was big. I used to work at a company in which you talk about core values, and I was so young and naive at that point. I'm like, this is all bullshit. Like, nobody puts your core values up and runs into it that much. And I kind of had disdain for that. I was just like, no. But now, as a business owner and as a mature adult, because man, I was a piece of shit for years, just a bad human being, and having kids and meeting Danielle, and I'm a very different man at 36 than the boy I was in my 20s.
Right.
And so now the core value as a business owner, that we need to operate and behave that way each and every single day. Our influencers need to operate and behave that way. It's
and
so
that Gen
important
Z, that young consumer, that's most important to them today.
Yes.
That's why they buy what they buy.
And that's why we put it on there. We have family is our number one core value. So it's family authenticity. Family authenticity, transparency, and quality are very big core values for us. So anytime we fuck up, we film it and say, hey, for instance, we had a pallet of a product that cost tens of thousands of dollars to make. I couldn't sell it because it was over roasted nuts. So we gave it to families in need. That
it wasn't bad. It just didn't taste like our product.
It didn't meet your spec.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't the experience I wanted
right.
paying customers to have. So it's like, hey, we fucked up. We'll eat this. I don't ever. If somebody comes to me with an issue and be like, hey, it's a questionable thing, the answer is always throw it away or nope. It's not even a question for us.
Right.
Do the right thing again from the get-go. And if it doesn't feel right, then don't do it. But it's different too for us because we're self-funded. So we've never raised capital. There's no rounds. And I think the cool thing now, the hip thing now is raise, burn, sell.
Yep.
We have been profitable every year with a 34+% EBITDA every year, and have not taken on capital and don't, besides the equipment loan, which I'm not, it's 1%, it's free money. I'm taking that all day long. But when it's your own money, money, it's a little different than spending somebody else's money. Right. So we were very lean, and now last night we went to Mila and the bill was like $300. That's not happening 2 years ago, and it's even hard for me to do it today. Even though I know we can do it, like I don't like unnecessary spending. I don't like flaunting. I don't think it's appropriate for our brand, and nor do we do it. I mean, I'm like that in my personal life though too. Like I haven't bought a new pair of jeans in 3 years. I don't. I'm very frugal.
Well, you know what though? You earned that Mila dinner.
What's that?
You earned it.
Yeah, Mila was delicious.
You earned it.
So
you
good.
know, so.
But you operate a little bit differently too when
it's your own
your back's always against the wall. We started Fitbutters with, I took $5,000 from Fitness Informant, and that's what we started Fitbutters with, was $5,000, and then I paid Fitness Informant back. We got in a position to do so. But I mean, you look at the future of FI too. People are like, "Oh, what are you gonna do there?" Like, I'm still always gonna be part of it, but now I'm trying to grow a team because I don't want to go back to bring this full circle. Like, I don't want people to look at me and say, "You're a Fitness Informant." I want Fitness Informant to be a destination for free education,
Right.
Of
brand
the world,
of
right?
it
So
for
like
education,
now
right.
we have
Multiple
Sammy
people.
and Gerhard
Yeah.
and Danny and Damon, and like I want this to
Gary
be
back?
Like, Gerhard.
He's back?
Yeah, part-time.
okay.
I'm freelancing it up. But again, like I don't want that business dying with me being hit by a bus. Like I want that thing to continue. So like and I'm also busy. I'm
Right.
also busy. So I need to have help on this to help do deadlines. I still do a ton. Like I write every morning, every night for FI. I film when and where I can. But I also understand like that was a personal brand for a long time. I need to make that into a brand so people can have the education.
Yeah.
And I also need to focus on, and I said this in the Price Paul podcast before, like my retirement plan is not Fitness Informant. That's not going to set my family up for success for the next, whatever.
Ever.
It's not generational.
Right.
No.
Fitbutters
Fitbutters.
can be generational.
Right.
And so I need to really
Focus there.
put a lot of my effort and focus there while bringing good, smart people on the Fitness Informant brand that can uphold our reputation.
And the fact that you recognize that obviously is important, where
Yeah.
most people probably wouldn't, right? Because they're so ego-driven, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And like I could never like let go of FI. Maybe that's my ego part because it's my baby.
You built it, like,
right?
Yeah.
But like I have more fun doing Fitbutters on the brand side than I do Fitness Informant because like going into Publix today and seeing that's like
I think, again, we talked about
So
this another.
cool.
It's tangibility.
Yep.
It's transactional, technically, right?
Right.
It's the
yeah,
kill, I guess, if you will, right?
And like at these expos, right? Seeing their reactions to the product and
It's the
being
best thing in the
there's
world.
People come up to you and they're like, and then they try and they're blown away, and
Right.
like it's just.
Just
Yeah.
like facial expressions when people try it is like the best thing in the world.
Yeah, and now too, like, not to take up too much time, but like a lot of the brands that I work with on FI will just call me and be like, hey, how do I get in the vitamin shop? How do I, do you have a good contact at Hy-Vee? Or how do I position a product to do so? And I don't charge for that. Same with you.
Right.
Like we could be
I
making
did
a
it for
ton of money
years.
on consulting.
Did it for years, yeah.
And so when you partner with FI, it's not just posting content to Instagram and TikTok. Like you get me when I'm
Yep.
available to help consult you on how to get into FDM because they don't know.
Right.
And I would say I'm probably one of the most experienced persons in the space
Yeah.
now, for sure. Especially from a content creator standpoint. Nobody's got more experience in this than I do when it comes to the FDM world. So I've had plenty of brands reach out and we've had conversations, and I've pitched some of these brands to some of my buyers who I have a good relationship with that I think would be a good fit.
Yeah.
They're not getting that anywhere else. So and I'm not talking about Vitamin Shop and GNC, that's specialty. I'm talking major mass retailers.
mass, yeah.
And so like when you like, hey Ryan, we want to do an annual plan with you, what do I get? Well, you get this content, but also you have access to me here.
Yeah.
And that's I
huge
can't put a value. I mean,
You can't. You
I
can't
don't
put a
number on it.
monetary.
But if you utilize me
on
once
that.
and I get you into a Hy-Vee,
I always look
or
back
get you into
in the
whatever-
days when there was no social media, no LinkedIn,
Right.
no Instagram, and you had to grow a brand.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just Google a buyer's information,
Right.
or something like
Yeah.
that. Like it was a lot different back then.
It's very, and I'm also very real with
There
people
wasn't
too.
people technically I could call and say, hey, do you know this or that? Didn't really exist back then.
No. And that's one thing too. Like I'm very real with people. Like I will tell them how I feel about something
Mm-hmm.
because why would I want you to go into FDMs and be unsuccessful? Like whether it's a package tweak, a formula tweak. I mean, we talked about this at the gym without disclosing brands. There's things that you should change. This isn't sports nutrition and food, especially from a mass market standpoint, are completely different. The consumer is different. The buyer is different.
Yeah.
The politics are different. The level of maturity
Everything's
is different.
Everything's
Like you can't. We behave in sports nutrition sometimes like children.
Unprofessional.
And or your phone will blow up and you get like a child response or something like that. Shit does not fly.
No,
in
not
that
over
world.
there.
Nobody has. And I've always said some of the CEOs in this space, traditionally, would never be able to get a job at a company like General Mills because they just don't act and behave appropriately. And now I knew my time and place. When I was at Mills, I acted like a mature adult. When my time, like when I went home, I was a piece of shit. But I'm saying, like, I understood like how to behave in certain environments. But I also feel, and you're like an anomaly in this one, Ike, and I just want to like congratulate you on this. Is like, I feel like if, as a business owner in the sports nutrition world, if you have kids, you tend to be a little bit more mature. Like the people that I've worked with, they seem to have their shit together more.
Right.
You know, obviously not having kids, but you have your shit together. But I know plenty of people that don't have kids that just operate on, you know, like I'm 21, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna treat people poorly, I'm gonna do what I want.
Well, I feel like it gives you perspective when you have kids, and maybe that's just because we're parents. We get
It forces you to grow up mature, probably to some extent.
Yeah.
Even though some people have kids that are still terrible.
Well,
but.
maybe it's even like, you know, you're an uncle, right? Aren't you? Yeah. So like, I mean, to you, like, I've seen you post things with your nieces and nephews, and like you are in the moment, like you are like a dad figure, like you love to be there, you love to be Uncle Ike, and so like when you have that 24/7, it does force you to obviously put things into perspective a little bit differently and realize and start. And for a long time, I didn't appreciate it, but I appreciate everything I have in life now. Because life's short, man. Like it could be gone. It could literally, I could get in the car from when we're done here, and who the hell knows? Yeah. You know, and so like, if there's any kind of like, I just want to make sure our children are proud of their parents, that we put them in a good position, that we raise them correctly. Because some of these, I mean, we could go all day, just like how unappreciative. It's gonna be interesting the next 20 years. Scares the hell out of me as a parent, like what our daughters and our son are gonna have to go into. But I'm hoping it's a whole podcast on the softness of society, right? Like we're so soft, we just let everything go. It's like I always, you know, my parents never beat me, but I got spanked. Oh yeah. And I think that's still a good thing, you know. Like
I know what your definition of beating is, but like, belts, sandals, right. You know, spatulas. Yeah, I had all that.
I mean, but
soap in the mouth. But like now you tell your kid that, like, you know, you get arrested for that.
It's, I mean, but you respected, like I respected my father because I was scared of him a bit.
Right.
But like I wouldn't back talk, and I knew like you didn't do that to other people either. And so like I just think like
it's different now.
Maybe we can kind of like just relax. Like I mean, this whole like woke movement, I think we've taken it way too far. Yeah. There are certain things that we should not say and do, 100%. But when you start nitpicking little things to find a reason to be pissed off at somebody, now we've gone too far.
Yep, agreed.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I said I think it's been a beautiful conversation to be able to get to know you a little bit deeper, a little bit more than the personality that I knew.
Yeah.
I think it's been incredible to know also too the history of what you've created. And I admire you both for taking the time, the effort, and the passion to create a dream, bring it to life, and then really working at it every single day in the midst of being a parent, and I know how difficult that is. And I can't wait to see the future, what Fitbutters is going to be. I can't wait to see that dream manifesting into your much larger facility, much larger squad, but enjoy the present moment and every single win that you're having right now, because it's a beautiful thing, and that you've done that in such a short span. So
the work doesn't stop, obviously, and I appreciate that. And it's been a story. It's something I'm very, very proud of. You know, second to being a husband and having kids. Like, this is the coolest thing in my life. And then the fact that it's still happening. You know, at some point, like, people are like, "Are you going to exit? You're going to sell?" I mean,
yeah, probably. Make a bet, probably in the next 2 years, I think.
You know, we'll probably explore that, but like, it's because of being a husband and having a family. Like, I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, because I grew up with nothing. I think you grew up pretty not poor, but you didn't have a whole lot either, right? Like as a kid,
my family was able to provide. You know, I mean, you know, I wasn't rich technically, but. Like I got everything I needed, you know, growing up, you know,
so
thankfully.
Like, single mom. I mean, she grew up in a married household, but on a farm, little farm in
small town life.
Minnesota. So like,
do you have any animals?
Pigs. I showed pigs in 4-H.
Joseph used to have chickens, dogs, llamas, camels. He used to have everything.
Camels.
But like our kids have more today than we ever had.
For sure.
And it's nice to have those things, but at the same time,
and they're also seeing what it took to get there.
But at the same time, we don't need these things. And I told Dan, we have a camper, and I said if we lost everything tomorrow, it would suck. But as long as I have you and our kids, and we can take our camper and live simple life, I will be okay. Because that's what's most important to me.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. You guys are super humble. Love seeing where you started, where you are, where you're going. Blessed to call you friend, both of you guys friends. You guys have both impacted my life on many different levels. So obviously, we'd love to see you continue doing what you're doing. Keep killing it. And, we'll have you back on in a year, and we'll give everybody an update.
There we go.
Heck yeah.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going for great.